Do you want the facts? Can you handle the facts? Are you over the beliefs? Are you tired of the lies? Have you uncovered what religion really is? Do you identify as an Alkebulan kidnapped? If so, then welcome to The Verdict, where we stand on facts over beliefs. Court is in session.
Court is in session. What do you do, y'all? It's your brother, man, from the motherland, coming to you guys live from the NY, back with another one of that Verdict show. I am him, your judge, your honorable Judge Jones, Mr. NBIC. And again, you know I represent that o.D. I want to give a shout out to the YouTube family. I want to give a shout out to the ancestors. I want to give a shout out to the creators. I want to give a shout out to all the deities of the Alkebulan. You coming back? To all the Alkebulans that have been kidnapped worldwide. Shout out to you guys. You heard? But today, we are going to have a continuation. Hold on a minute. TT, I can't come. My daughter's wilding right now. She want me to come. I can't come. I'm in teaching mode, right? So, excuse me. So today we're going to play a video, a continuation of what we was watching yesterday. Now, before I play this video, I want to address the narrative that's always being conducted or being spoken of when it comes to this Hebrew identity crisis. Listen, look. All three religions that's running this world had their hands in slavery. And each religion that had their hands in slavery taught their slaves their religion. So when you hear that, it was Rastafari, before that it was Israelites and this, listen, the ideology that you guys are teaching and trying to understand is coming from a book and a story handed to you. It's not a story that's passed on orally, from family to family, generation to generation, like something that we've been speaking of since the very time of existence. No, this is literally a story because somebody from the west side of the world will not understand what's going on the east side and vice versa. So when you hear these things, people must understand that the reason why a lot of people in different regions claim to these religions or nationality is through slavery, bro. You have to understand that. All religions had their hands in slavery. The Bible justifies slavery for all religion. You understand? And if it justifies and that's the word of God, then people is going to do what they do. And this is what you're seeing. So I just wanted to address that before I proceed to, give you guys part 2 of this phenomenal video. And this video is, it's so important that we as the Alkebulan kidnaps pay attention and stay informed and have knowledge of such information that you have to pass on to your children, bro. Because it seems like we have forgotten who we are, what's going on, how we got here, why we are here, and what's keeping us here. These are the challenging questions that people are so afraid to challenge. So they rather stand on the belief than the facts. So We're going to go play this video. Without further ado, let's continue part 2 of the Trans-Arabic slave trade. Let's go. What is this?
But if ever the expression has had a true meaning, these are crocodile tears. Actually, the girl has not been a victim of the crocodiles. Her father has simply sold her to a slave dealer.
I know we passed these points, so I'm just trying to just find these things real fast. So forgive me while I do this. And if you want me to, let it play from here as well, I can do that as well. Put it in the comments. Oh.
We have been told of a house that sells its merchandise.
Very difficult to leave my masters because I thought there weren't any other options.
Robbers, but the village is on the front line of the war between North and South. The Muslim government appears to turn a blind eye. This family says they've been left with nothing after the Arabs carried off goats and cattle and then burned the village. Up to 300 villagers were killed, mostly men. Then the women and children were rounded up. The Arabs captured Abu Kamaru, along with dozens of others. She believes they intended to sell her in the north as a slave, but let her go when they discovered she was blind. They still have her 2 children. Pounds to a slave trade flourished during Sudan's civil war. Niamlel village is close to the Sudan People's Liberation Army, fighting government forces in the north. It's alleged that the government is training and even arming the Arab looters to further its military goals.
They are practicing the slavery and they are killing people, innocent people, without any reason. If they want to crush us, they should fight us alone without killing and abducting people and practicing slavery.
In a situation of war, it is likely some mistake may take place, but I can assure you it is not a policy, and we challenge those evidences which they have support to bring it to us, to take them to our appropriate authorities, and we can assure you.
So it's like it's like everywhere you go. Hold on. Let me fix this. Hold on, guys. Yeah. There we go. Hold on. There we go. So, as you can see, I feel like sometimes we forget, what happened to us and who was doing these things to us. And I have to keep popping in and out because they believe that I'm over here doing foolishness. So, and I don't want to even get off topic, but I got a video of these individuals selling grabber. Now, for those that know what grabber is like broken up tobacco that you put with your weed to give it a slight harsh taste. You know what I'm saying? That's what I used to do. You know what I'm saying? And these people, because I'm trying to really process how I'm going to deliver how wicked these people are. These people was selling grabber with a low dosage of fentanyl in it, bro. And the dudes, which I'm guessing is hustlers, because you know hustlers, when you buy work, you know you gotta make sure the thing is not tampered with. So they got strips in their cribs or whatnot, and I'm guessing somebody say, "Yo, let me see about this," and then that homie went back to the store and said, "Yo, son, I want to get busy. I want to get busy," and the way that the Arab was responding, he was responding like he knew that these joints was contaminated, bro. I want you guys to think about that. Let us continue.
Can respond to them.
People like Alouat Majok may provide that evidence. She became a slave as a child. Her baby is the result of a rape by her Arab master and bears his name. Sudan has been at war for over 15 years. It's left its mark on almost every aspect of life. International slavery was abolished 100 years ago, but in Sudan no one seems to have noticed its passing.
That means that joint is still going out to this day. Nothing feels different. That's something I want you guys to think about, bro. Nothing feels different. Nothing. It's like, this is what we going through. This is what it is. It is what it is. Oh, slavery is over. It's not the way we treating you. Can't make this stuff up, man.
The first colony the Arabs founded in Africa was in the Dahlak Islands in Eritrea, and the Arabs developed a large slave trade to feed the insatiable demands of the Basra salt and soil reclamation projects around Basra in Iraq, where the delta, where the Tigris and Euphrates enters the
This is also Muhammad's time, 7th century.
Yes. This was the rise of the Arab Empire that became, an international empire. But the first 250 years of the Arab Empire saw a large, massive slave trade where they were going into East Africa and taking slaves. If you read the...
You hear that? You hear that, people? You hear that? Let's display some more.
Classic Arab scholars like Ibn Khaldun and even Ibn Battuta, they speak of these massive concentrations of African slaves in Iraq. They were called the Zanj, as in Zanzibar or in Tanzania. The Arab word for Africans was Zanj, Z-A-N-J. So there was a series of the revolts of the Zanj, or the African slaves in Iraq. And at one point, the revolts were so large that the Zanj rose up and captured the city of Basra and massacred, because apparently they were treated so brutally by their Arab slave masters. They massacred every man, woman, and child in Basra and established an African kingdom in Basra, which is the closest large city to Baghdad, which at the time was the center of Arab culture in the world.
The first great.
So let me give a shout out to those that did the capturing. As you guys can see, the courage didn't associate with religion. I'm pretty sure Allah having mercy was not on the minds of these people when it was time to receive their freedom. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that the number one thing that they did is realize, yo, we gotta rise and unify. No more division, no more praying to their you know what and doing what they do, bro. We said no. And we had our own empire. I just want you guys to know that these people remember all of that. They remember it all. And because they remember it all, they're gonna always make sure that the black man fall. That is a fact. But let us continue.
African slave revolt historically documented took place in Iraq. Known as the Zanj Revolt, it lasted from 869 to 883. Thousands of African slaves from East Africa working in the salt marshes in southern Iraq joined forces with other groups to revolt against slavery and for social changes. The Zanj rebels even established their own state with its capital called Al-Muqtada, and during 14 years seriously threatened and challenged the reign of the Abbasid Caliphate.
They spoke of, al-Masudi in particular spoke of one plantation in the salt fields of Basra that had 50,000 African slaves there. Now, if 50,000 African slaves were living there, to get those 50,000 African slaves, they had to capture 100,000 able-bodied adults in East Africa, because out of every 2 slaves that are captured, 1 would die in transport. So, if in the Americas, if a slave life lasted 7 years, let's just say for round figures, the Africans in the slave fields of Basra lived for 10 years. That means every 10 years, 200,000 new able-bodied adults had to be captured in Africa to supply 100,000 slaves to keep the Basra plantations operating. So that means in 100 years, you're talking about 2 million African able-bodied adults were taken from East Africa to Iraq, okay? And they're treated so brutally that they regularly rose up in rebellion. Not so much in the European slave trade in Africa, but in the case of the Zanj, the African slaves in Iraq, there was subhuman bondage. And that if you read the Arab writers, the description of the African slaves, where they spoke of them having large sexual organs, of smelling bad, of being thieves.
And again, this is why I always tell you guys, it's always best to read from the authors of these nations. It's not always to read from the authors of, Christianity or Judaism. Sometimes you have to read from an Arabic author that may wrote it in English or may gave it in Arabic, and you have to get yourself a translator or translate it through your phone, or they got the new thing called the translator pen where you could just go through on the words and it translates everything as you go on each word. So maybe these are the things that we need to start doing in order to start finding the actual history, bro, because it's too much. Everything that's in front of us is one-sided, and if it's going to be one-sided and we're going to play this one-sided game, which I'm totally cool with, if we're going to play this one-sided game, then allow me to be on the one side of Alkebulan, which means that I want to learn the language. I want to learn the culture. I want to learn the dance. I want to learn the rituals. I want to learn it. Yes, I want to learn it. I want to learn. Why not? What I got to lose? What I got to lose? the Bible said in those times you will be called back, right? I'm being called back. But I want to connect back to my ancestors. I don't want to connect back to a story that was hand given, whether it was by force or by choice. It still was somebody of them, of who they are, that's giving it to me. And that's not what I want to do in the next chapter of my life, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to, like, you see, look, you know what I mean? Like, I trim the bed and all that. Like, it's definitely time for a whole new atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not doing the same thing, but we definitely got to pay attention and remember what's being said right here. So let's continue.
Of wanting to rape their women, of being dishonest and lazy.
Which I did in the University of Birmingham, UK. And I wrote the book because there was very little writing on some of the themes that I wanted to address, that I address in the book, having to do with the theme of Islam's interaction with African traditional religions, the whole history of jihad in West Africa, and as part of that, a very important part of that, the slave raiding and the slave trade that happened within West Africa by Muslim communities. That was why I wrote the book, because not many had written on these kind of themes in Islam history in West Africa.
Now, I'd like to look at one of the topics in your book, the topic of colonisation. We know that the Christian West colonised Africa. The West has acknowledged this and is self-critical in this regard. Did the Islamic empires colonise Africa?
Well, yes, there was a lot of activities on the part of Muslims in Africa, especially in West Africa. What happened?
So, the mass majority of us is being taken from West Africa. Now, when I say the things that I say, like the creators or, you know, the ancestors, the reason why I do it, and I would advise you guys to do it as well, is you don't know exactly where in West Africa you are from. Like I say all the time, not everybody comes from the south of Africa, bro. Not everybody. You see in the slave trade, the man raped or had a boy. This is an Arab raping the black woman, and they push a. So I got kicked off, and now I'm back. We're going to continue where we left off while the computer was restarting, and some of it is my fault. I'm not even gonna blame YouTube, and some of it is my fault. I forgot to do a few things, like put the goddamn motor, the internet wire cable back into the modem, but it is what it is. But we're going to continue watching this video. So without further ado, let's move.
But controversially, a Western aid agency has got involved.
Freedom, sweet. Literally freedom for 20 people.
These children are being brought back with money supplied by Christian Solidarity International. Here, it's handing over £10,000 to a slave trader.
نشتغل نعيش بس ناكل ونشرب.
ولا بتاع برك.
ده لا ده أنا بقول القروش ده ملي أنا براي.
The charity made a clandestine visit to the area, which is closed to aid workers.
Now you guys see how, you guys see how these people continuously exploit our women. Even till this very day, till this very modern day, you see a lot of our black women get exploited by these individuals. And then when they don't comply or they do a ignorant behavior like smoke a cigarette in public, they get arrested. But this is what they do. Exploit our women, take advantage of them, do etc. That's why the sister that's over there and that's going through what she's going through, I don't get mad because it's like, yo, nah, you going to pay for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all got to pay, etc. But because it's a high level of exploit. Like, these people catfish or whatever in real life, in real time, trying to, persuade black women or exploit black women sexually and pay for them to come to Dubai so they can take dumps on their face and all that. And women and women is ecstatic about that. Like, they really think that that's cool. Like, oh, really? Yeah, sure. When would you like to go? Like, come on, people. You really got to make that make sense. You feel me? But let us continue.
As Cox, the British Conservative peer, defended the programme.
You came here and you saw families whose children were enslaved, families who've lost everything. They've lost their livestock, they've lost their means of living, and they have to raise the equivalent of 5 cows to buy their child back. Would you leave those children in slavery if you could actually enable the local people to redeem their own children's freedom?
The practice of taking slaves has flourished during Sudan's civil war. Niamlel village is close to the Sudan People's Liberation Army, fighting government forces in the north. It's alleged that the government is training and even arming the Arab looters to further its military goals.
They are practicing the slavery, and they are killing people, innocent people, without any reason. If they want to crush us, they should fight us alone without killing and abducting people and practicing slavery.
In a situation of war, it is likely some mistake may take place. But I can assure you, it is not a policy, and we challenge those evidences where they have support to bring it to us, to take them to our appropriate authorities, and we can assure you we can respond to them.
People like Alouet Majok may provide that evidence. She became a slave as a child. Her baby is the result of a rape by her Arab master and bears his name.
An Arab master produced this right here. So all the stories that you guys hearing that, oh my gosh, they got black children with blonde hair, is because of that. Like, our DNA is so potent that it's not supposed to be tampered with. No matter what lion and what tiger, their production will always remain the same. It will always look like a tiger. It will always look like a lion. That presence, that feature never leaves. Unless it gets tainted with. So now when it gets tainted, this is how you're able to identify a tainted individual. You get things like mixed hair. I'm a tainted individual. Black people that have brown hair are tainted individuals. Our hair, our texture, everything is potent. If a genealogy does not get touched, that essence, that color, that purity remains the same. Part of the reason why they want justification, because they want to compromise that purity. Throw a little snow bunnies out there. You know? Throw a little Tommy Hilfiger out there. Throw something out there. Gain their attraction. This is what they do. You feel me? Let us continue.
Sudan has been at war for over 15 years. It's left its mark on almost every aspect of life. International slavery was abolished 100 years ago, but in Sudan no one seems to have noticed its passing.
The first colony the Arabs founded in Africa was in the Dahlak Islands in Eritrea, and the Arabs developed a large slave trade to feed the insatiable demands of the Basra salt and soil reclamation projects.
Let me apologize for it playing back where, from the beginning of when we started before the interruption. So it's running it back. It is what it is. I just wanted to apologize. Let us continue. And Black Girl Magic, I see you, man. I see you, pimp. We gonna chop it up.
Around Basra in Iraq, where the delta, where the Tigris and Euphrates enters the
This
Persian
is
Gulf.
also Muhammad's time, 7th century.
Yes. So this was the rise of the Arab Empire.
And I know it's more you guys tuning in. They're playing with the algorithm, of course. But please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And shout out, and let me give a shout out to the brothers over, I forgot the title of their YouTube, that put this phenomenal work together. Shout out to you guys. Continue doing what you're doing. And I would love for you guys to come on the show. I would love to get some more edification. I would love to have a conversation, whatever it may be. Let's make it happen. Captain, let's go.
That became, an international empire. But the first 250 years of the Arab Empire saw a large, massive slave trade where they were going into East Africa and taking slaves. If you read the classic Arab scholars like Ibn Khaldun and al-Masudi and even Ibn Battuta, they speak of these massive concentrations of African slaves in Iraq. They were called the Zanj, as in
The Zanj, or the Zana Bears. Write that down, Black Girl Magic, so we can go, so we can dive in, and I can look into that and get some more intel about that. Yeah, we looking into everything. Doesn't matter what it is. We gonna find out these facts. We gonna find out how this happened, when this happened, who was the very first victim of it, all of it, bro. That's the goal. Because with that knowledge, we're gonna be able to go where we need to go. Because whatever you guys believe, whether you think somebody's gonna crack through the sky, or judgment is going to come, or kumbaya and all, you guys are waiting for that. You go ahead and wait for that. But when it don't come, it's a high chance that it might be too late, and it's gonna be too late in two ways. It's either it's gonna be too late that we conquered and you didn't get a chance to participate, or that we failed and we're destroyed, and it's because of your lack of participation is the reason why. That's the only two things that's going to happen. But you go ahead and continue waiting. Let us continue. My bad.
Zanzibar or in Tanzania, the Arab word for Africans was Zanj, Z-A-N-J. So there was a series of the revolts of the Zanj, or the African slaves in Iraq. And at one point, the revolts were so large that the Zanj rose up and captured the city of Basra.
Now, how did this revolt take place? We're gonna listen carefully to see if any mention of religion is mentioned in this revolt. Let's see.
and massacred, because apparently they were treated so brutally by their Arab slave masters. They massacred every man, woman, and child in Basra and established an African kingdom in Basra, which is the closest large city to Baghdad, which at the time was the center of Arab culture in the world.
The first great African...
Didn't seem like they was following any religion. They didn't gain no strength from religion, or maybe he didn't want to say that they did or didn't, or probably he didn't know. But at the end of the day, you got to make it make sense. Let's continue.
Slave revolt historically documented took place in Iraq. Known as the Zanj Revolt, it lasted from 869 to 883. Thousands of African slaves from East Africa working in the salt marshes in southern Iraq joined forces with other groups to revolt against slavery and for social changes. The Zanj rebels even established their own state with its capital called Al-Muqtada, and during 14 years seriously threatened and challenged the reign of the Abbasid Caliphate.
They spoke of, al-Masudi in particular spoke of one plantation in the salt fields of Basra that had 50,000 African slaves.
Did you guys hear that? 50,000. 50,000. All under the green light, all under the green light of Muhammad, of Allah. And you black folks is going to tell me that this is us too? This is our God. This is our Savior. Or the God that's being spoken of in the Quran is ours. This is what you say? 50K of you guys. I repeat, 50K of you guys. Let us continue.
Now, if 50,000 African slaves were living there, to get those 50,000 African slaves, they had to capture 100,000 able-bodied adults in East Africa. Because out of every 2 slaves that are captured, 1 would die in transport. So if in the Americas, if a slave life lasted 7 years, let's just say for round figures, the Africans in the slave fields of Basra lived for 10 years. That means every 10 years, 200,000 new able-bodied adults had to be captured in Africa to supply 100,000 slaves to keep the Basra plantations operating.
So when I say that the entire world literally is functioning off the backs of the Alkebulans, I did a live earlier telling you guys that every law that is created all over the world is to the massive oppression, or should I say the continuous oppression of the black man. And this is right here, giving proof of it. Let us continue.
That means in 100 years, you're talking about 2 million African able-bodied adults were taken from East Africa to Iraq, okay? And they're treated so brutally that they regularly rose up in rebellion. Not so much in the European slave trade in Africa, but in the case of the Zanj, the African slaves in Iraq, there was subhuman bondage. And that if you read the Arab writers, the description of the African slaves, where they spoke of them having large sexual organs, of smelling bad, of being thieves, of wanting to rape their women, of being dishonest and lazy.
Which I did in the University of Birmingham, UK. And I wrote the book because there was very little writing on some of the themes that I wanted to address, that I addressed in the book, having to do with the theme of Islam's interaction with African traditional religions, the whole history of jihad in West Africa, and as part of that, a very important part of that, the slave raiding and the slave trade that happened within West Africa by Muslim communities. That was why I wrote the book, because not many had written on these kind of themes in Islam history in West Africa.
Now, I'd like to look at one of the topics in your book, the topic of colonisation. We know that the Christian West colonised Africa. The West has acknowledged this and is self-critical in this regard. Did the Islamic empires colonise Africa?
Well, yes, there was a lot of activities on the part of Muslims in Africa, especially in West Africa. What happened there was not necessarily outside colonization, but there was a form of colonization in the sense that the dominant Islamic tribes conquered weaker tribes and imposed Islamic rule over them. And therefore, there was some kind of internal colonization going on. The Fulani in West Africa in particular were very much in the habit of conquering and imposing Islamic rule on other tribes. So that was a form of internal colonization, yes.
What about with the Arab conquest of North Africa? Was that a form of colonization?
Absolutely. That the Arab conquest of North Africa was a form of colonization that took place in the 7th century when Arab Muslims burst out of Saudi Arabia and conquered Egypt and went on to conquer the whole of North Africa. There were a lot of Berber tribes there. The Egyptian Copts were the original indigenous of the land, as well as the Berbers. And they were all conquered and Islamized and Arabized. That was also a form of colonization, definitely.
Now, do Muslims today acknowledge this? Are they self-critical about this?
Not to the extent that the West has become very critical. In fact, many Muslims don't even admit that there was any form of colonization.
That is a fact. That's why you'll see them be like, oh, come on, my brother. But yet, we'll have fentanyl in your grabber and still smile in your face and still take your woman and your children and do all the foolishness that they want to do. Because, you know, Allah said love, peace, and joy. You know, a lot of us black people has been so colonized that we really believe that this is us. This is our customs and our nature, and we must respect it. You feel me? But let us continue.
Even though if you talk to the Berbers, and let's be also aware that many of the Berbers have become Muslim, the Berbers will tell you they have been colonized. They have been, there's been Arab imperialism. The same thing in Egypt. The Copts know that they are the original, the indigenous of the place. They feel like they have been colonized. The same thing will happen we talk to Sudanese. They will tell you that Sudan was colonized by Arab Muslim invaders. So yes, they will not admit it, but there is that kind of history there.
Okay, thanks for that. I want to move on to the topic of slavery now. Did the Muslim empires practice slavery?
Absolutely. Slavery was a very important part of Islamic expansion in West Africa.
Say what? A very important piece in religion, slavery. Judaism, slavery. Christianity, slavery. Hebrewism, slavery. Bantuism, guess what? Slavery. We are enslaved to these people's creation. I want you to remember that. Let us continue.
And in fact, in the Sudan and from the very earliest period of Islamic penetration into Africa, it started by buying, purchasing slaves and trading in slaves. And then it went on from purchasing to raiding for slaves and capturing slaves deliberately, especially mainly black Africans, and transporting them into North Africa and into Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, and onwards to the Ottoman Empire to Turkey. So slavery was a very endemic part of Islamic interaction with Africa. And in West Africa, the jihad's period of the 18th and 19th century.
For those that don't know, jihad is when they invade places based on the disagreement of following such religion. So it's a jihad for the Arabs and the Crusades for Christianity. Just so you know. Let us continue.
Involve massive slave raiding and slave trading. And many of the slaves that were captured and sent and sold and taken into the transatlantic slave trade, most of those who were doing the raiding at the time were Muslim communities because they were the dominant tribes. So a lot of that happened. That is not to say that non-Muslim communities were involved in raiding, but the dominant tribes were the Muslim communities that were doing the raiding at the time.
The treatment of slaves is a topic that you bring up in your book. Can you talk about some of the differences in the way that slaves were treated in the Western world compared to in the Islamic world?
Yeah, one of the themes I explored in my book is this perception that Muslims treated their slaves much more humanely than the Western slave trade.
Listen carefully, guys. It's about to get down. It's about to go down.
And what I found out in my own research was that that is not necessarily the case, and that there were very harsh treatments of slaves by Muslim groups. It was just a done deal at the time. And one of the key differences I looked at in my book that whereas slaves taken to the West were able to marry and reproduce and have their families, and you can still find large populations of African Americans today in North America and in the Caribbean. You go to the Islamic world and you find very few black remnants of the slave trade, which was very massive. And one of the reasons is that many of the male black slaves taken into the Islamic world were castrated as eunuchs, which meant that they could not, of course, reproduce. And the other factor is
I know you guys is listening carefully. Let that sink in. So when the next one comes around and they saying that everything is shut down and the only way you're going to be able to get through downtown is if you put the thing that's inside your hoo-hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo, you better say no. Okay? Let's continue.
Is that many of the women were taken as concubines by their slave masters, and they gave birth to mixed races, and they were very much absent.
To do what? To do what? Everything I said, everything I be telling you, man. To do what? To mix the what? Why? To break the purity.
So into the society. So you don't have black slave kind of descendants in the Muslim world as you would in North America. And part of the reason is the castration and the way the slaves were treated.
Did the Islamic world abolish slavery?
Slavery persisted in Islamic countries far, far longer than it did in the West. The West abolished slavery long before the Islamic countries ever abolished slavery. And they did so under a lot of pressure from colonial governments and from Western governments and from all kinds of activist groups. And in fact, the Saudi Arabia, for instance, abolished slavery in 1961 or 1960 thereabout, whereas Mauritania abolished slavery in 1981. And these were done on paper, and a lot of it is still being done. In practice, there are still a lot of slaves in Muslim countries. And the Sudan, during the Civil War, there was a lot of slave raiding going
on. Are you guys listening to what I'm listening to? Are you guys paying attention? I hope you guys are paying attention. Till this very day. Till this very day. As written down on paper. black man, it's written down on paper, but the action shows otherwise. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Let's just go down the memory lane and everything horrific that happened to black people here in America or just in the world in general. You know what I'm saying. Let us continue.
Done by the Arab Muslims in the north against the enemies and the Christian Africans in the south. So even up to the 90s and this century, there was still capturing of young African men, boys in the Sudan for sale. So slavery continues, even though it has been abolished on paper in many Muslim countries.
Did you hear what he said? He said that Christianity was in the South and Islam was in the North. Christianity was in the South, Islam was in the North. I want you guys to meditate on that. Meditate on that. And then ask yourself, why was Albert Christian told to go to South Africa, and why couldn't he go where the Arabs was? Or was it because he would be more comfortable being around those that's already been indoctrinated? It would be easier to preach the good news, right? Yeah, let us continue.
I often hear Muslims talking about the golden age of Islam, and they look back to this as the time when Islam ruled, and this is the golden period that they look back to. What's your understanding of the golden period, the golden age of Islam?
Yeah, it depends on which Muslims group we are talking about, but the golden age of Islam, many Muslims look back to the period between the 7th and the 9th century, when during the Abbasid Caliphate, or rather from the 9th century to around the 13th century, during the Abbasid Caliphate. They talk about it as the golden period of Islam. But if you look at that history, it is fraught with difficulties, with a lot of problems. Yes, a lot of progress was made under that period. There were times of very stable rulership. There were times of progress in terms of learning and science and exploration. There was a lot of that going on. But that does not necessarily, and that was the time that Islamic orthodoxy was formalized. So there were a lot of milestones within that period. But in terms of golden period, I think it's very tricky to begin to talk about golden periods. If we look back and look at how messy the whole situation was at that period and many other periods in Islamic history, just like many of the other empires.
Yeah, because from what you were
saying, I'm gonna tell you what it is. The golden period was when they was getting a large sum of money for these slaves. It was unbelievable. That's what that was. This has nothing to do with anything else. That's what it was. That's the golden era. It's nothing better than getting 4 slaves for the price of 1. Or getting a large sum for a whole family, or just dividing and taking the son. You heard what they were saying. Let us continue.
Saying it was a time of conquests, colonization, and slavery as well.
Absolutely.
With everything else.
Absolutely.
So there may have been those great moments, but there's still conquest, colonization, and slavery as part of it.
Absolutely. And during that time, it has to be said, Muslims were not the only ones who were conquering. Other people were conquering also. And slavery, yes, during the 9th up to the 13th century, slavery was still very much an Islamic phenomenon as compared to the West. Of course, there was ancient slavery in many other societies, but in terms of chattel slavery, in terms of slavery as an institution, that was profitable. That was very much still an Arab Islamic preserve until sometime from the 15th, 16th century onwards. So yes,
so the 15th, 16th century, these are around the same times where we're being re-indoctrinated into this Euro-Christian ideology that we have taken on now. This is the beginning process. This is when King Alfonso converted his name from Alkebulan name to King Alfonso. This is when they started exploring. This is when they started coming with this nonsense into your space. This was the beginning. This was the beginning. The renaming, writing it in the books, showing this was the beginning of it. Gathering all the information. This is the beginning, similar to what they're doing now. This was the beginning. Let us continue.
A lot of that as part of that so-called golden period of Islam.
Now, discussing these ideas in our universities is not always an easy thing to do. In your book, you write, hence, in the study of Islam in the West, the dominant convention is that a critical approach is reserved for the Christian past, but forbidden for the Muslim past. The net result is a romantic picture of the history of Islam, avoiding and sometimes denying such issues as the jihadist slaughter and mass enslavement of traditional African believers. Can you just talk to us a bit about your experience as an African in the Western universities talking about these issues?
Yeah, that is actually a very important question. I, as an African who embarked on the study of Islam in Africa, was very frustrated that, especially back in the 90s when I was doing my studies, that Western academics were shying away, almost self-censoring on these difficult themes of jihad, of the violence associated with jihad, and the slave raiding and slave trade that was very massively undertaken by Muslim societies in Africa. And some only noted in a footnote, and we don't want to discuss it.
And that's why they don't teach you this in school. This is why you spent your entire life not knowing about nothing. They always give you the slavery of the West. But, you know, the Arabs have a massive hand in your demise, have a massive hand in your destruction, in the lack of the end of your generation. There's ancestors right now furious because they know that their lineage is no longer there because it was conquered by these individuals who was doing things that prevented them. These things is for real, guys. Come on now. I told you this. Come on now. They're trying to hide everything. They talk about everything. They're trying to minimize the massive destruction of Islam. And then they got black people trying to convert brothers into that. And I love my brothers. Don't get it twisted. I love my brothers. But that religion of Islam, there's a DUB. Because I know how it was introduced to you. All right? Let us continue.
And that was very frustrating. Meanwhile, they will go at length and talk freely and openly about the Western transatlantic dimension of slave trade. And so for me, this painting of a very romantic picture of the Islamic past in Africa was hindering interfaith dialogue and dialogue between Muslims and Christians in particular. And especially in a situation where the radical Muslim groups were laying claim to these histories, these romanticized histories that was written mainly by Western scholars, that they had a golden age of Islam in Africa that they want to return to. Unfortunately, many of the groups that we have today that are ideological Muslim radical groups, and even Boko Haram in Nigeria, are laying claim to some of these romanticized histories that has been contributed to by Western scholarship and academia on the West of Islam in Africa. And this is what I was trying to challenge and to raise questions about, that we have to paint a more realistic history of the past. Africans have to get a more holistic history of their past if we have to live together, have meaningful dialogue between ourselves as Muslims and Christians.
So what do you think is the way forward?
Yeah, I explored in my book, the reason why I wrote this book was not to be polemical against Islam or anything of that sort. It was simply to say to African Muslims, my co-Africans, fellow Africans, that look, both on the Islamic and Christian fronts and the past, we have difficult histories with the way these traditions interact with Africa. So we need to take both histories critically. We need to study the histories critically, instead of denying and romanticizing one history. Because when we do that, we are not going to, unless we understand our past very clearly and honestly, we cannot move forward with any sense of integrity and mutual respect. So the whole idea is, how do we move forward? Let's have a much more critical discourse of our past, and then we can move forward with meaningful futures together. That's the only way to move forward in this.
Everything that I be saying. In order for us to know where we're going, we must know where we come from. We must go into the doors. We must challenge and gather information that may hurt our feelings, that may make us feel emotionally. It may do something to us. But if you really want to find exactly who we are, what we are, what's going on, you have to go down these doors. You just have to. There's literally nothing you can do about that. You just got to go down these doors. I'm sorry. Let us continue.
Thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
Just look at that. They fly in and they like, hey, you know what I'm here for. And look, like Worm looking for Smokey. What's up, big Worm? Looking for Smokey.
Akai tinga mai ke ga ja pingi te len tembe ong pin ka jal kai karu ke monjeng ke ga ja yo ko cheno ku mai ja ja pingi ku ma ja chin ben wer ni ya miskin pa ku nien dele ku beki ana ki tu pat dan chin no ka chin tangi je to ku ong kin nyai a wor wel pa wong ki de no ne chi kwa de ten qua the chin nga kien nam ya a chi nyai.
Sudan. Since 1952, this enormous African country has been struck by a civil war between the North and the South. One of the horrible consequences of this war is the revival of slavery.
Kiman kaka akila biyoga kala yoga gi cái đó cơ cô cái này lúc yêu bài của là nhiều chuyện thì cả cả rồi chỉ là uy phải chỉ theo uy cái cả bên này yêu quyết tục rồi nên ở chỉ giờ lôi cả nó khâu phát cái quên giờ lên tiếng cái là khâu cái quên cái chỉ tiếng của ra giờ lo cái là đất pin cái chính thức bên yêu rồi đầm mình cái đó đầm có cái đầm chạc thì có các bạn phải do cái nóc giờ là cái lúc vượt.
I hope all of this is getting you guys upset and frustrated, pissed off, disappointed, and as you should, because at the end of the day, our job is to, uncover the lies and bring forth the facts. And seeing our sisters speak on such things is crazy, but we gotta learn these things, guys. Let us continue. Hit the like button.
So there were, 414 slaves, so it's 20,700,000 Sudanese pounds that we owe you. Or put it in his, okay, that's 5 million. That's 5. That's 6 million. 13 million. We are here and you have come back because there are many people around the world who've heard about the suffering of the slaves in Sudan. I can only name a few, but I think of Bishop Caesar Matsalari and Bishop Makram Ghazis. And so many people have not only felt bad in their hearts about the suffering, but they have felt that they must do something, and they've prayed every day, and they have given money. So now
it's all the time. Every time we are in the most desolate times in our lives, who comes to save the day? The great white. All the time. It's never late. They have to make sure that they put that in the story. Have to. Let us continue.
You're free to go back to your villages to find your mothers and fathers and your husbands and your relatives and neighbors. And we wish God's blessing upon you and hope that you can live in peace and security from this day onward.
The American John Eibner, who represents CSI, the Swiss organization Christian Solidarity International, travels about 6 times a year to South Sudan. During his visits, he buys back the freedom of women and children that have been enslaved.
This is the wife of his brother, and this is his daughter.
Ah, his daughter. And were they taken at the same time?
The same day they were taken.
The same day. When were they taken?
And then, last year.
And Warawa?
No, last year. It's not negative, but negative. Wato.
And Wato. And so, have you seen them since they have been back, or is right now the first time you've seen them?
Right now.
That was the first time. Very good. Well, we're very happy. No one knows exactly how many slaves there are in Sudan, but we have reasonably good estimates of the numbers, and we reckon that there are over 100,000 chattel slaves in Sudan. That is, slaves that are the private properties of private masters. And there are many more people who are subjected to slave-like conditions who have not been kept by private masters but end up in government-run concentration camps, which the government calls peace camps. Okay, Noor? Okay, shukran.
Slave trading is a thriving business.
What was that? $13 million? $13 million? Was it for one or was it for a bunch of slaves? See, they didn't show us all of that. You see, they're not going to show you what they purchased because, like I said, this entire world must function of the oppressing of the black man. This is facts. Let us continue.
Northern militias are raiding villages in the south for slaves, which they then take back to the north. They keep them in their households or sell them to other masters. A few Arabs in the north, so-called retrievers, are tracing the slaves and buying them. They then bring them back to the south where these
So I got a question for the Hebrews. So you see these things going on in Africa. They're being kidnapped. They're being into slavery. They're being traded. So is it because they're not on a ship is the reason why they're not the children? Or is it the fact that they are in Africa, that's why, and they never got on a ship, and because they're a part of the Arabic slave trade and it's not the Christian slave trade, it's not valid, right? I'm just trying to figure that out. So whenever you get the chance, please let me know. Let us continue.
retrievers present the slaves to John Eibner, who is buying their freedom.
So, that's all, folks. Now, let me just give my 1-2s. Now, it ended with him saying he purchased whatever he purchased and he was buying their freedom, which is cool. But again, every time black people is in their most level of distress, it's only one person that comes to save the day. They always make sure that it is a European. And then look, it just finished. It just cuts off. Like, I'm making a purchase of how many to set them free, supposedly. That's how it always goes. Now, the reason for me putting up this video was for brothers and sisters to get a clear understanding of what's going on and how, things like this really affected our lives and how these religions is literally plaguing us and preventing us from rebellion, preventing us from unifying, preventing us from coming together, preventing us from building together, preventing us from loving each other, preventing us from loving ourselves. This is what religion is doing. Religion has become the measuring stick of who we want to be. You want to be based on stories or of your imagination, mystical stories that's been passed down from generation to generation. You want to uphold that and think that this is the way of our redemption. But in reality, that's not what it is, bro. Jihad, crusades, these was the times when they was forcing their beliefs upon the people, bro. This was the time where heads was chopped off, bodies was burnt, children, women raped. This was the time. Like, we cannot forget that. Bang the gavel on the, bang the gavel, man. Bang the gavel. We got to bang the gavel. Because it really seems like we have forgotten how we end up in Iraq, how we end up in Great Britain. You guys go ahead and go believe this story of we was running and ruling and King James is black and this and that. You guys go ahead and believe that. Like I said, we standing on facts. If that's what you want to believe, that's what you gonna believe. For me, and I will hope people that will have the same mind as me will ask questions like this. Okay, King James is a black man. How come I can't see pictures of his family, of his mother, of his father? Where's those pictures? How come every time I see King James, I'm seeing European descent? His mother's white, father's white. But when I see this long-nosed, supposedly black man named King James, I don't see no pictures of his moms, his pops. I don't see no pictures of nobody. Somebody that's real close to him, cousins, no, you don't find that. And because I don't see that, and because it's not a validated proof of such things, I can't stand on that. I must stand on the logic. Like, yo, where's the facts, bro? Okay, yes. Now show me that. Or you're unable to. I gotta believe and have truth and have confidence. Nah, you can't tell me to have confidence in a God that allowed, innocent children to be eaten by alligators. You can't tell me to have confidence in a God that allowed, black men to be lynched and burnt alive. Like, when I say these things and when I see these things, this is like, when will this God ever defend us? Like, damn, bro, how much violence and wickedness must happen to us for you to say, I added enough is enough? Oh no, my bad. It's always a process. This gotta happen first, then that gotta happen, and then that got miss us with that, bro. Like 400 years, I think you should be coming down to resolve this situation, the situation that you put us in. I don't want to hear we broke the commandments. Our ancestors broke it. It wasn't us. And you put us here, and you got to get us out. Oh, this is what you're saying. Get us out. Don't give us a process. Do it one time. Just like you did Sodom and Gomorrah. Do it one time. Like you did in Egypt. Do it one time. So you guys continue waiting for that. You guys continue waiting for that. You continue waiting in hopes that something is gonna redeem you. Go ahead. Go ahead. All of this nonsense that you put us in. Now we get in the short end of the stick. It's a process. All right. I'm going to give you a little bit of this today. And then next 10 years, I'm going to give you something else. And then the next 15 years, I'm going to give you something else. And then the next 30 years, I'm going to give you something else. And when that time comes for the end to be, like when Y2K occurred, and everybody thought it was coming to an end. I remember because my mom threw us in church. She said, all you niggas is going to church. Let's go. Right now, me, my brothers, my cousin, and all of us, we was in church singing, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. We was all in there just waiting. You know what I'm saying? 11:50, I'm over here singing even louder. 11:50, singing even louder. 11:55, I probably didn't even have a voice. I remember like it was yesterday. They was chanting so hard. They used to have the choir on top of the entry for where people came in. They used to be up top of there, and boy, they was going off, and it was deep too. And then 12 o'clock happened. And then somebody shouted and said, we're still here. And we said, we are. We hugged each other. We went home. And we had to process it, right? Because that joy happened, when, you usually outside New Year's, you want to be, you know what I'm saying? You want to be free. And you was in church thinking that this is going to be the end. I'm telling you, I'm seeing people hugging each other. Probably people telling they shorty the darkest secrets. doing all the wickedness and all the evil you can't imagine. Like, yo, we about to die. And then 12 o'clock hit and nothing occurred. And nothing occurred. One thing I'm going to promise you is there will be another war. They will be. When? I don't know. But it will happen. It will happen. There will be another war. That is a fact. But again, all of these things is propaganda. It's not prophecy. It's not things that's coming from biblical writings and stuff like that. God is not coming to redeem us. We got to redeem ourselves. Our redemption and our connection and power and strength lies with what our ancestors was doing. I'm talking before Christianity, before Islam. We had our ways and customs. We got to get back to that. That's the only way we're going to get forward, like the brother said. We got to get back to that. Nothing else matters. It does not matter how you feel and what you believe. Because this is one of the biggest downfall of us as people, is the fact of what you believe. Well, I believe that this is that. And I believe, and because I believe that, I'm gonna stand on what I believe on. It's like, what? Like, when did we believe a belief? When did we stand on a belief? When did belief became the end all be all when it came to understanding or retaining information? When did that become oh man. When did that become the priority? It's hilarious. When? I remember growing up, we was always told that it got to be about the facts. Bring the facts. If I go to court right now, the court don't want to hear, oh, I believe I wasn't there. They want the facts. They want to know, oh, this is his fingerprint. Oh, this is his shoe size. Oh, this is the blood stain. Oh, it matches his car. We found blood residue under his nail. We got, you know what I'm saying? They want facts. So how come we, as the Alkebulan kidnappers, who had everything taken from us, everything given to us has been watered down, plagiarized, copyright, copywritten, all of these things. We know these things. We know these things. But yet still won't let it go. Still won't let it go. And I come to the understanding and to the realization that there's no one to blame for our, certainties besides ourselves. Our high level of ignorance, our high level of acceptance, foolishness, all of these things is our doing. You can't blame the Europeans. You can't blame the Chinese. Listen, they're going to just capitalize off your stupidity. If they see that they was fighting and we was keep fighting, the Chinese be like, yo, man, I don't think I'm going to just deal with them Africans right now. I'm going to wait for it to calm down. How come? What happens if it never calms down? And this goes on for thousands of years. We lost our way. We lost our touch. We forgot. We forgot. And what caused the amnesia was religion. Allah did that. Yahweh did that. Yahweh did that. Yahushua did that. They did that. Jehovah did that. They did that. Mesindisi did that. They did that. The Father did that. We lost our way. We don't know who we are. From the 1500 till now, we don't know who we are. That's a long time being reprogrammed, being attacked, being erased, being removed, being demolished, being destroyed, being taken advantage of. You name it. This is what it's a long time. From the 1500s, the late 1400s to the 1500s, all the way to 2025. A lot has changed. A lot has changed. And it's hard to pinpoint everything of yours back. Oh, man. No. At the end of the day, guys, we must understand that the odds is always against us. We must always put in the forefront of us that we are always going to be given anything and everything to us, to harm us, to destroy us, to everything, bro. It's like these people has not forgotten, but we have. And I know a lot of it comes from fatigue, you know what I'm saying, stamina issues. A lot of us is tired. We're spiritually, physically, emotionally, sexually. A lot of us is tired. I get it. But what you think things are supposed to be when you are in jail, bro? And if you're tired and you wanna, take a break, at least give the children the foundation to let them use their youth the way that you use your youth, fighting and standing on business. And that business is freedom. Liberations of the Alkebulan kidnaps. This is what we need. This is facts. We as people have to start understanding where we are at. And that everything that's in front of you, that's given unto you, is literally designed to destroy you. It's called slow death. If you guys ever seen this video that I posted of the rats just circling around, they took them from the wild, put them inside a cage, put them in milk, gave them everything that they wanted. They went from being fast individuals to having so much sugar to literally being on a program. We are all on a program. You're gonna listen to this. You're gonna like. You're gonna comment. You're gonna subscribe. You may say, "Man, F this nigga. We don't want to hear that." You may do whatever. You understand? You may do whatever. But these people are the ones in control. These people are the ones that's in control. They are the ones that's governing your life. They are the ones that's telling you which God you are allowed to accept. They are the ones that's giving you the stories and the writers. They're the ones that's telling you that voodoo is bad. They're the ones that's telling you that Alkebulan people is this. It was blacks selling blacks. It was this. It's them that's giving you the story. Because for them to remain in power, they must give you a divisional story. over and over and over and over and over and over again. We gotta do better, man. Man. All right, man. That's my time for you guys. I hope you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. Please continue supporting. Get yourself some merchandise. I'm chilling today, man. I'm chilling, man. You know, we recouping from last week's celebration, and you know we recouping. It was phenomenal. Definitely want to go chill my little mans and chill with the Wiz and the daughters. You know, nothing crazy, but it's your brother, man, from the motherland. Came to you guys live. Once again, like, comment, share, subscribe. Share this with your friends and your family. And if it's your first time, I hope it's not your last time. If it's your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, that means I'm still on your mind. That means we got to stay on that grind. Because you know it's about that time. It's time for you guys to go get yours. Because I'm on the journey to go get mine. And as you guys can see, you see I got my brothers on the side of me. You know what I'm saying? That just lets me know that I got nothing but a YouTube family. Shout out to you guys. And we outside with it. But you know what it is. It's your brother, man. You understand? And I'm a holla. One.